Well, I'm the one who's here.
What?
I'm right here.
Hi, Whitney, it's David.
Oh, hi, David. I don't see you.
That's my videos off.
No, okay. Well, that's just as well. Do you see me eating my soup?
I do.
Okay. Then maybe I better
I
start.
did.
I'm
No.
the only person here.
Yeah, I just got this going, so it may take a moment for others to join in.
Oh, okay. So you must be happy to see me because it's working.
Yes,
And you'll see Tony shortly.
it's
Well,
always a pleasure to see you too.
Thank you.
yeah, well, you want to come for dinner? Because that's what we're doing.
What are you having? I haven't even thought about that far yet.
Well,
Cauliflower
we've got some
soup.
cauliflower soup made with chicken stock, a beef pie, and some tomatoes from the garden for
Nice.
arugula.
If it wasn't dark, I'd head that way, but
You
I think I'll just venture to the kitchen.
can probably see the lights of our house through the woods.
Woods are pretty thick.
Yeah, maybe. David, what you wrote
Oh, yes.
to honor David Barrows, I thought was fitting and quite wonderful, very moving.
Oh, hi.
Hello. Well, that light's kind of hard.
Anyway, your comment about making serve your community to honor David, I thought was a wonderful expression.
Yeah. Well, let's just say it was challenging, challenging moment for all of us. And I'm certain that David did his time and then some others for other people. And it is a fitting way for people to step up and recognize him.
Yes. Oh,
It's
here
so
comes
bad. He and
Gary.
I, Jeff Braun and David and I share a wood splitter, and twice, maybe three times, at least twice, I went up that hillside to collect the wood splitter. And one time it was winter time, and I don't know what happened or where he turned over on his tractor, but if he was up there at the top of the hill and it was icy, when I turned around up there, it was icy and snowy, and I thought I was going to slide down the hill. So that's a bad spot. Anyway, I'm sorry for the whole thing.
Yes, absolutely. There's Gary.
Yeah. Hi, Gary.
Hi, Gary.
Good to see you.
You look very distinguished in that dramatic shadowing of.
Yeah.
It's getting dark. It's 7 o'clock now, so I've got
Oh, I know.
It looks like it's darker in your house than at David's. David's got blue sky behind him.
Yeah.
yeah, he lives a little further south.
Yeah, he's.
Yeah. Well, we're pretty black here, too.
David, thanks for setting it up. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. Sorry it was so late last night, but that's the way it goes sometimes.
Oh boy, you must have had a long day and lots of long days these days.
We've had a few, but all good. We all have our challenges, and if the worst I have to do is set up a Zoom meeting at 9 o'clock at night or whatever time it was, so be it.
So be it, yeah. Oh, you had asked me about that trail behind the Veterans Memorial that
Yes.
the young bikers have been using. I took a look at it, and I think it's good that it's been stopped at this point. I don't think that there's really any damage yet. It's almost riprap in there. I think a lot of boulders got piled into that embankment. So it's not real loose soil, but I could see a course could develop there just coming down through. And I thought what we might want to do is just take some of the old Phragmites stems that have dried out and put it onto the trail itself. And that just might help.
As long as it doesn't spread
Right.
seed.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we're really lucky this year that we got it all before any of it went to seed. So there weren't any new seed heads that developed. So I feel pretty confident that so long as it still isn't alive vegetatively, it's not gonna reroot.
Tony
May
said,
I ask you both a question? Last Thursday, I don't know if you, last Thursday, I noticed that behind the memorial, if you're in the parking lot and you're facing the nature trail, the memorial is to your right. And on the Phragmites side of the memorial, there's a slope, a fairly high, steep slope with some boulders in it. And that's vegetated with some black locust trees, a small stand of black locust. And one of them has a broken limb. And I was thinking, well, I'll just lop that limb off because it's unsightly and it would slightly tidy up the area. And then I thought, well, it's not my land, it belongs to the town. But anyway, if the next time I go there, may I just cut the limb is probably 2 inches in diameter, but it's broken and it's hanging down over the bank. Is that okay to do?
I don't see any big issue, but if you could just shoot me an email, I'll get a quick look and shoot your response back, just so we've both covered the bases.
Of course. Okay, I might do that on Thursday. If we do any Phragmites plucking and cutting,
Yep.
that'll be when I go there next, but maybe tomorrow. But I'll do that.
Okay. Somebody joined in and now disappeared, but
So it looks like Tandy was here and Rich is here now too.
Yeah, hi, everyone.
I'm gonna disappear if that's all right.
That's fine. Thanks for setting it up.
You're welcome. Enjoy.
Thank you. Good to see everybody.
well,
Yeah,
great.
good to see you. Nice hat. You got your fur hat on already for winter.
It's cold.
Yeah, we need it this evening. We may have our first wood fire this evening.
Oh, yeah.
It got
Yeah.
damp too.
Frost in the gardens this week.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have a frost in your garden, Rich?
Oh, yeah. I got a little kind of hoop deal for green beans. I'm trying to see if I can make a second harvest the green beans. I have some years, but it's going to be tough.
Mhm. Yeah, we put a cover over our tomatoes and they seem to survive the cold nights. We're kind of on a sloping
Oh,
hill, so we're not in a hollow area, so the cold doesn't collect as
good
Hi.
spot.
it does in some other places.
Hi, Lise.
Hey, Lee,
Hello.
thank you.
Hi.
Hi, Lise.
Hi there.
Lise, you must be taking
Nice to
the
be
call.
with you all.
Good to see you.
What?
You must be taking the call from your library. Lots of books behind you.
Surprise, surprise. Yes.
Quite a library.
And this is only one small portion of it. It is quite a library.
Wow. Guess so.
If nothing else, it would provide good insulation from the cold if it's on an exterior wall.
Well, we hope so. We hope so. It's the one place where the pipes froze underneath.
Hmm.
Oh,
So it was fine up top, but not below.
Oh, dear.
Oh, well. Ooh, where's Mike?
So Rich and Lise, will you have a report about the moorings?
Yes.
Good, because I'm curious to know what we discussed, Rich, if you were able to get in touch with Jay Foster.
I did. And after a few calls, he's rejoined us.
Oh, good. Good. So
Hello,
we can
Carol.
talk
Welcome.
about that because I've looked at them.
Hi.
See you.
Hello, Cheryl.
Hello.
Hi, Cheryl.
Have everything? Yeah.
Let's wait just a couple minutes before we get started. People may have trouble tuning in.
Better.
Lisa's there.
Yeah.
Tandra's there. Who's that?
I didn't see anybody writing back saying that they could attend or couldn't attend this time, so I'm not quite sure what to expect.
Susan isn't here so far. Rosario. Did I do something?
Oh, Steve's joining us.
Who is-
I had quite a job getting there.
Hey, Steve, how are you?
We don't get crumbs.
Your camera is angled up, so we just see the top of your head and the photo behind.
Oh, good. There you are.
I want to stay
Yeah,
there.
but your top of your head is beautiful.
That's the best part of me.
It's still. a
But we
little-
want to see your eyes.
That's good.
There,
How about that?
Oh, that's great.
oh, good.
Good.
All right.
That's the crew, pretty much.
That's pretty much it. I
Susan,
don't know if Pat is going to be able to join us or not.
oh,
Pat,
Pat is gonna be able to join us.
That is coming or not?
oh, I think she said at one point she was.
Mhm. Well, why don't we get started? We can review the minutes from the last meeting, which was the July meeting, since we didn't have the meeting in August because of Zoom issues. I took a look at the minutes and I thought Tony did a great job as usual on them.
yes, I agree.
Any corrections? Let's see,
Okay.
there was some correction from Rich. Did I get that?
Yeah, you did. Thank you.
I have a correction about what I said about Coleman.
Yeah, Rich.
You made the correction, I believe, Tony, didn't you?
I'm hearing some music in the background.
Yeah, that's Tony's cell phone. I'm gonna turn it
Oh,
off.
no.
Driving me nuts.
No, that's the alarm. It just says dinner's ready.
Tony, I don't have the minutes in front of me, but I believe you did make the change about the dam and,
I think
you
so.
know, having an evaluation and some work, but you took the figures out, I believe. I don't have them in front. It looked good to me.
Okay,
Still hearing radio.
after we do our lake by lake updates, there are a couple of other items that we need to cover. One is to select officers for this year. I was reminded by Dave Kinney that we hadn't done that yet. So we can do that. I think we should also talk about where we stand with the Phragmites project and prospects for the future. And then also getting an update from the mooring committee, if there's been any development there, would be good. Are there any other agenda items that people would like to cover today? Hearing none, we can go lake by lake, but I think I still hear a radio or something.
Yeah, I hear something really loud.
Around.
Well, I turned off the alarm on Tony's.
Okay, so it must be a.
Well, I'm muted. I muted myself and I'm about to mute myself again.
Okay,
I hear something
I'm
ringing.
hearing an audio from the
Perhaps everybody should mute themselves except the people who are talking.
We do.
Do that.
Yeah, I'm still hearing it a bit, but it's more muffled. Okay, let's go lake by lake. How about Coleman Pond to start?
Okay, well, lots to say. The water is about a foot low.
Oh, I could use it.
Honestly, I can't.
Why can't everybody mute themselves except the people who are talking?
There. No.
Okay, shall I go on about,
I don't know yet. Okay, you go ahead.
shall I go ahead? All right, water is low. We've had an invasive aquatic plant survey done, and we have no invasives. And Tony did the dock survey. Do you want to say what it was?
Excuse me, before the invasive, didn't we find a musk turtle?
We found a musk turtle. We found bryozonins that indicate that Coleman Pond's water is clear, very clear and clean. It took them 8.5 hours because the water was so low that the literal area was that much larger for them to do. But they're an excellent group, 2 women who have come several years. And I really appreciate them coming. So, Tony?
I'm just typing.
No,
Yes,
you're going to talk about the docks.
right. Gary, I sent a table for the lakes, and the survey that Jeff and I did on August 28th. I don't know if you got that.
Yes, I did. Yeah, it looked good.
Yeah, any discussion or issue with that?
No, I didn't, but let's talk as a separate agenda item about the Lake and Ponds surveys, and we can all
Okay.
summarize what we came up with and decide what the next steps are there, too.
Okay.
Right, okay.
I just got a text message from Pat, and Pat doesn't have the link to get into the meeting, so I'm gonna try to send that to her now.
Okay. Do we want to talk about the
Well, let's give him a second.
Scopa Road? I'm speaking to you.
We can. I think that's a separate issue from
Okay.
Coleman Pond also.
Okay.
This is Greta.
Shall I go on about Coleman?
Yes, please.
We still have 2 loons. We have a loon that's,
2 loon chicks.
we have 1 loon chicks there, I think, and a parent. I can't tell them apart, but I learned something interesting from my son. We have not been having the usual gathering of loons that happens at this time of year. And I was told that's because the parents and the loon chick are still on territory, and the loons don't come in and congregate when there's a breeding pair. So that's it.
Good. I just got a text message or a call from Susan too. She's having trouble with the link. I'm going to send it to her as well. I remember you saying something, oh, that's a pitcher pond issue that'll be coming up. How about pitcher pond, Rich?
Let me unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of items. I'll try to go through them quickly. Everyone knows about the water problems and the levels. We had a tank come in and fill again at our gate in August, but people got the name of the company and they were duly threatened. So I don't think we'll see them again. I finished the bacteria test last week.
Rich, excuse me, Rich, am I on mute? No.
No.
That was a tank company collecting water as they did last year?
Yes.
Okay, and what?
They were told that, they were told that at the gate they weren't allowed to do it. So they did leave, but I don't know. I wasn't there to see if they'd really taken much water by then.
Okay.
But I think our attorney got involved. One of our board members is an attorney, and I think he got involved in talking with them too. So hopefully that's not going to happen again. Yeah, I finished the bacterial test last week, 2 sites, both turned out really well, below 1 count of E. coli, which is very good. We had a survey as well in late August. An invasive was found at the boat ramp by the dam. It's called Frog's Bit. The only other lake in Maine they've identified that is Cobussy Lake. I spent some time, DEP sent a person over as well to that I met with and kayaked around with as well to kind of check some other places. This woman completed going into all the likely places it might be. It didn't find any others, which was good because they found four small plants by the ramp. This is an invasive that can do a pretty intensive matting of this floor, the lake floor, and choke out other plants. And I got quite an education. Hi, Pat.
Hi.
Is this the first time that you've seen that plant or not?
Yes. Yes. So,
And what's it called? What's it called?
Frog's Bit.
Yeah.
Frog spit?
Frog spit.
Bit, B-I-T. So DEP is not going to label our lake as having an invasive infestation because it looked so minor to them at this point. So we just have to keep our eye on it. And, you know, as I said, I got a pretty interesting education about how it proliferates and so on with its little white flowers. So I think we'll be okay. I'm just glad we had the survey and we're alerted now.
Can you do anything to remove them if they're small plants? Pull them out?
Yes,
Or?
they were removed.
Oh, they were removed.
Yeah, they weren't matted. They weren't matted yet. Once they're matted, it gets difficult to remove them.
Oh, good.
The other 2 items I have are the survey, the docks, and the mooring, which I could wait on till later if you want.
Thanks, Rich. Any report on loons?
I've seen several up my way, up on one end of the lake. I haven't spent much time at the other end. Our lake's 3.5 miles long. I don't get to see much of the other end of it. I don't know, Pat, do you have anything about the lake or loons?
I haven't seen any loons or much of any wildlife. Did you already talk about the beaver dam, Richard? Because I'm late coming on.
No, I did not.
The beavers are damming up the entrance to the mill pond.
Again?
And just as quickly as they can dam it up, people who were trying to pull their boats through those mud flats are breaking the dam apart, but the beavers put it right back together. So there's some people that posted on the Pond Association Facebook page about it. So I paddled down to look, and you can practically walk across it anyway, but there's active beaver damming activity there. So I don't remember what we do about that.
Well, my neighbors down there who are year-round residents have taken it apart in the past. They'll probably do it again. They're very,
Yeah.
very conscientious about it. But that's pretty recent. I was down in there
Yeah, it's just a couple days ago. Yeah.
a couple weeks ago, and I saw the lodge up on that north end.
Yeah.
Did you see where their lodge is?
Yep.
Yeah, it's not too far from the mill pond.
Yep.
Well,
Well, now I evidently they want water in their lodge, and so they're just going to dam them.
yeah, okay.
So what
Everybody
is
wants
the
more
water
in the
level?
pond. Oh, it's
Is the water,
awful.
how is the water level in Pitcher?
What water?
Lowest
I mean,
I've ever seen.
it's really incredibly low. It's frighteningly low.
In spite of the beaver?
Well, they're not,
Well,
it's not
they're
building.
not, there's nothing really for them to dam up. There's nothing's coming into it or going through it. Now would be a good time to replace the dam if we needed to do that, because there's no water. But I know there are people who can't get their boats off, and that's been several years since that's happened.
Yeah.
Thanks, Pat. Steve, how about Norton? I think you're muted.
You,
Can't hear me now?
Yeah.
We can.
Okay, it's the lowest I've seen in about 65 years. We just don't have the water. We have 2 loons. We have several geese families just flowing back and forth all the time. We have 1 cottage that's just been sold, and for some big numbers, I think around 550,000. Other than that, we really haven't too much going on. We finished the survey, as you said, as you know, and we'll talk about that later. If the water keeps dropping, there's going to be problems with people getting their floats out, taking them down at the boat ramp. But we'll have to wait and see how that happens, and if people can get them out, or if we're going to have to do something different.
What's the bacterial testing, Steve?
Bacterial testing has been good.
Yeah, good.
We've only had 1 little flare up during the summer, and that was nothing. It lasted more than a day, and it's been good.
Great.
Yeah, that's good news.
Other than that, no, we really don't. I don't have anything more to tell you. It's everything's been good except for the water level.
Thanks, Steve. Lise, how about Moody? Lise, you're still muted.
There.
Yeah.
Okay, a beaver was seen, caught on camera by our son a couple of weeks ago, but the water level is about, I would say, 6 inches higher than it normally is at this season of the year. That's probably the beaver somehow. However, water is still coming out of Mariner's Brook. Not a lot, just a tiny trickle, but you can definitely see the ripples going along. So it's coming out. Nonetheless, it's higher than it normally is at this season of the year. Because our beach is only about maybe 4 inches worth of sand, and that's it. And it's usually about 1.5 to 2 feet. So about 6 inches difference. What else? 2 loons. Haven't seen any sign of babies. And our neighbors, I think I said before, had seen the blue heron, so that's there. and the weeds are thick as can be. A lot of dying back weeds now, lining the shore and lining the lining where the weeds are, and otherwise it's gorgeous. We have that yellow float that's still there, but there's not much activity on the lake. Some people were swimming earlier in the summer, but now it's sort of too cold to swim. But it's beautiful. And I was going out today with Paul Leeper, but unfortunately it was too windy. So he came and we decided it was not a good time to go out because we probably wouldn't get around the lake. And so we'll go out next week. And so I'll let you all know what the test results are.
Great.
So meanwhile, it's gorgeous.
Should come up to Moody.
Thanks.
Why?
Tandy, are you still on the call?
Doesn't look like it.
But it got silent when she left.
Yes.
Hate to say it.
Let me tell you about Levenseller. Levenseller.
No, I'm still here. I'm just listening to all you wonderful people. I'm listening to you.
Is there anything that you want to say about Coleman Pond?
Well, I think that she said most of it we have. I mean, I've still seen the 2 baby loons.
Oh, great.
And it's beautiful. We took in our dock already, so.
Thanks. With Levenseller, the water level is way down. It got a lot of swimming use this summer. A lot of families use the parking lots where you can pull off on Route 173. The water seemed more clear than usual. You could see your toes when you waded out 5 or 6 feet more clearly than usual. Not very scientific, but was more clear. And there was a loon that was raised to adulthood there as well this year.
There was a loon, what, with a chick or just?
A loon with a chick, and the chick was raised to adulthood.
It made it. Yeah, good.
It made it.
Yeah.
Had very attentive parents who were really keyed into the passing eagles and stayed close by their youngsters.
So there were 2 parents.
There were 2 parents. They worked well
Excellent.
together. Yeah. Let's see. I think that we've covered all of the lakes and ponds except for Maguntacook. And I sent the link to Susan. Susan, are you on by any chance?
Gary, she was having trouble. She didn't get the link, and neither I didn't get it, which is why I was late. So
Okay.
I've been texting with her and telling her that the link is up now, but she was, it just, I don't know. It came through at 10 after 7 and told me that the meeting was going to start in an hour.
Okay, so
That's
what I
when-
did is I forwarded Dave Kinney's message to both of you when I heard that
Yeah.
you hadn't gotten the message. So she probably got that message, but maybe, and Greta said she just resent it too. So she's
Okay.
maybe joining us.
Okay.
Let's talk about let's hear from Cheryl on
Cheryl.
your end of Norton.
Oh, yes. Well, we actually did walk out all the way to Minnow Brook yesterday. And it was quite the trip because we haven't been out there in 2 years. So it was a little difficult, but we saw lots and lots of deer tracks, places where they sleep. When we got down to the little, what's left of the stream, it's actually running very slightly.
Mhm.
So there is some water going through and there is some collecting here and there. It's really, really beautiful down there. We have almost 10 acres and it took us over an hour to walk the loop from our house down to the water and back up. But
Cool.
it was beautiful.
Terrific. I see that Susan has joined us now, but she has my name tagged to her.
Oh, yeah.
And that's probably because I shared my invitation with her. So that is Susan and not me. Easy to tell the difference. Thanks for joining us. Anything that you'd like to report from McGuntacook?
Oh, where'd she
I
go?
think just lost her.
Yep,
Okay.
long enough for a wave.
Okay, let's turn to the survey of docks and floats. I went out with Steve to do the Lincolnville portions of Norton and McGuntacook, and I think we had a pretty thorough survey. I don't know if there's anything that you want to comment on, Steve.
Okay, since you and I were there, Dale and I finished the lower part of McGuntacook, and we had 34 more floats down there total. 21 were encapsulated and 13 are uncapsulated. And we had 4 derelict ones that are up on the shore down there along that portion of the lake.
How many derelict?
4.
And did you say there were 21 that were encapsulated or unencapsulated?
21 that were capsulated and 13 uncapsulated, for a
Okay.
total of 34.
Good. So I guess what that means for McGuntacook then is that there were, if you take into account the ones that we surveyed, 24 unencapsulated, and that compares with 25 the year before.
Okay. Yep.
And on Norton,
Doing,
yes, Tony.
let's see, Pat,
Yes,
would you be willing to collate the findings from this year as you have in the past? I think you,
Yes.
didn't you do that?
yes,
You did.
yep. If everybody sends them to me, I've got that template. We could do that. Or send them to Gary and he'll send them to me, whatever's
Would that be?
probably best to have them go to Gary and then Gary send them on to me.
Yeah, so ones, I already have them from Tony. And I've got the new numbers from Steve for McGuntacook. And I know I think I know where we are for Moody Pond, but Lise, you can weigh in on that. If you're still
Well, they
with-
all look encapsulated to me.
the-
And
the-
I know that, yeah, they are both encapsulated.
Yeah, so the two of them are, and.
The two of them are in good shape.
Mhm. And for Levenseller, it was the same as last year with no unencapsulated and 3 without unencapsulation. So how about Pitcher?
It was a striking increase this year in the docks and floats.
Mhm.
18 more docks, 8 more floats. So we went from a total of 89 to 122. The unencapsulated went down 2,
To 8?
And
Is
to
it-
8.
Okay,
The undetermined dropped, which was good because a lot of the undetermined often you'll find the unencapsulated.
mm-hmm,
So that dropped from 7 to 3.
great.
So with the increase, so many increase in the docks and the floats, I think we did well because we're down a little bit with the unencapsulated, but we're way up with the numbers. So
So that would mean that you had, would it be 111 without unencapsulated polystyrene if the numbers work out?
that's right.
Okay, good. That's a significant improvement.
Yeah, percentage wise, but I would hope that that would happen with people. I've been hearing that a lot about more people on the lakes, more docks going out, more boats. We've certainly saw more boats this summer than in the past. So these are newer docks and floats, so it's good. I don't think any of the new ones are anything but encapsulated or metal, basically.
Well, that's really good news. Maybe that letter that went out from the select board made a difference. Just
Hopefully.
pulling people into the issue.
I'd just like to say about Coleman that Tony in the report he sent you has 3 years of reporting of unencapsulated.
Mm-hmm.
In 2018, it was 13. In 2019, it was 10. And in 2020, it was 6.
Oh, great.
So that's very clear,
Yeah.
going down each year. And so, I mean, the reason we're doing this is, do we need an ordinance? It seems, at least from Coleman, we don't. Although our docks and floats, they've increased a lot too, you said, Tony.
It seems, it just driving around the pond, boating around the pond, it just looked like there was a lot more different structures in the water. There are ramps that go down to floats, and then floats that are 50 feet away out in the pond, and then floats that were on the shore, and floats that are directly attached to the shore without ramps. It just looked, there are so many different variations that it was hard for me to categorize them. But my overall sense was that the number of encapsulation, the percentage of encapsulation was increasing, but the number of structures of one kind or another was also increasing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's I think that's the same thing as Rich is saying for.
And Steve and I saw that in Norton Pond too. It went from 76 the last year to 102 this year, which is like a 33% increase.
Yeah, and I think another difference, which is perhaps irrelevant, is that historically floats and docks and ramps were made out of wood, which faded and became gray. Now, the preponderance of new ones are either aluminum or brightly colored plastic. So they conform to the encapsulation issue, but it looks like confetti all over the water. Which well, for what it's worth, it's my opinion.
It's the lobster buoy look.
The lobster buoy look in Vinyl Haven, yeah.
Yeah.
And probably disintegrating plastic is not going to be good for the water.
Well, no, I mean, there's less styrofoam.
Eventually.
Yes, exactly. There's less styrofoam, but there's more plastic of that large object plastic. So we may be
Which
winning
will disintegrate at certain time.
in
This
in
is
centuries to come.
probably, it's an end of life issue for them. Probably more than disintegration gradually is what are people going to do 20 years from now or 20,
Yeah.
30 years from now when these things really can't be used any longer. At least with wood, you can put them in the woods and they'll rot away.
But the new plastic ones, I mean, I saw a number of those too on picture, but I don't see those being ones that are gonna disintegrate in ways that are gonna pollute. I think I agree with Gary. Those are things that are gonna have to get hauled off.
Yeah.
They just seem
Hope
too
so.
substantial to fall apart like that.
Well, that's true, but it's not the subject of this conversation, but hauled off isn't the end. It's just another step. That's.
Well, in terms of our water and what we're trying to accomplish on the lakes. it
Right.
matters.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. They're probably better for the water year in, year out than the styrofoam would be in any case.
Absolutely correct. Gary, can I, these numbers, you have them all at this point, and you will send them to Pat, and Pat will assemble that, is that right? Is that
Yeah,
right? Am I-
yeah, I'll give her the number she needs to plug into her table.
Okay. So would we be revisiting this topic at a future date? It would,
Yeah, I think once we have the table, we should circulate it and look at the numbers. We'll have the percentages then. And then we can make it part of a report back to the select board, either when we do our report outs at the meetings or put it into the next annual report.
thank you.
How about a report from the mooring committee in terms of developments there?
Want to start, Lise? You're muted.
Okay. Why don't you start and give the sort of the overall, because I did some research about what other towns have done,
Okay,
but maybe we get our context and then I'll fill in.
that's fine. I think we've mentioned to people about the lag time we've had with our mooring committee because of how long it took for an attorney to review what she needed to review and get back to us, which was actually over a year. So we've worked to reconstitute our committee, which has taken some time. And my understanding from a few conversations I've had with Dave Kinney this summer is that if we can find a few designated mooring zones, common mooring zones for a few boats on our larger lakes, there's a chance that we can keep protection for the shore owners in front of on the water in front of their property to protect it from anyone dropping a mooring and mooring their boats in front of people's home, cottages and camps. At this point, there's nothing to stop that because there's no ordinance. And I don't know if I mentioned, but I'm talking to Paul Lieber, who's consulting with our committee, the mooring committee. He said that McGonagall had like 20 of those moorings this year, which had increased over the last couple of years. And that there were 4 moorings that were being dropped just for the weekend. These are people who don't own on the lake, and they're putting them in wherever they can. Now, I was hearing in the summer, don't worry about Lincolnville so much because no one's done it yet. And if you start talking about an ordinance, maybe people start doing it. Well, in the meantime, one of those moorings happened on Pitcher Pond. And the homeowner called me about it. The person dropped anchor within 100 feet of their shore and did not ask permission. And I told them, there's nothing you can do about it at this point. There's no ordinance. I checked with the town office. I heard that, and Steve, maybe you can clear this up, but I heard on Norton Pond that a person dropped a mooring in there who wasn't a resident. And he went to the town office and asked the secretary, where can I put a mooring in Norton Pond, and was told anywhere you want. Because there's no ordinance. So here's the dilemma we're in. As of today, it looks like we can have a committee meeting next week, and then we're planning to meet with our committee with Dave Kinney and with the attorney and try to clarify what we need to do to help put together an ordinance that will protect shore owners from having this happen to us in town. Until that's done, we have no recourse. So the issue before us now, according to Dave Kinney, we could have a designated area. We'll have to clear this up a little more with the attorney. But to have a designated area, we need to find spots. Now, I talked to you about this, Whitney, about what we're facing. It's not an easy thing to find areas that we can put some moorings in that aren't going to be offensive to to owners on the lakes. And I've been trying to find spots that are off like coastal mountains, easement land, or nature conservancy lands. And I'm still doing some searching, but at this point, we don't have any spots on. There's a proposed one on Norton that is not part of the sailing club. Paul Leeper suggested a small area up near Route 52 in that area. I don't know the space situation. I'm looking in the Mill Pond and Pitcher Pond, but it's shallow and there's not much space. So that's where we're at. We're working to try to find something. I've asked people in those three places, if you see something, if you have some ideas, please let me know, or someone on our committee know, so we can try to get these designated areas and get an ordinance in place to protect the property owners.
So Rich, can I respond to you?
Yeah.
Okay. I think in our discussion, we decided that the best place would be off of the Coastal Mountain Land Trust easement land, which is owned by Jay Foster, because it's an
I
easement.
talked with them about this.
Did you talk
Jay.
with him? Did you?
Yes.
And what did he say?
Well, because I had talked to the Coastal Mountains too about doing this off their properties, and they didn't have a formal vote, but I was told that it would be okay. The trouble is I haven't gone back for specific areas to ask them, so that may require a committee to take another look, but I don't think it'll be a problem off Coastal Mountains land. But Jay brought up how inaccessible that is and thinks there might be a problem, because we don't want to insult people either by saying, sure, we have a mooring area, but you can't get to it. It's 2 miles down the lake and there's no access. So that's another complication that we're facing.
Well, that's what I said to you. And I also looked at the depths. I was thinking around the point of Jay's land, the end of his conservation easement. there where there isn't wetland, because there's wetland around two sides of his property. And
Mhm.
at the point, there is one area that is 9 feet where there could be a mooring,
Yeah, yeah.
but other points are 3 feet. So, which is not good. So, it sounds like he might be, I mean, I mean, that's the only thing, because that I would say, as in our conversation, that the only area, because it's so crowded at the bottom of Coleman, bottom
Thanks.
of the horseshoe.
Thanks for checking that out. I don't think Jay would be against the idea. I mean, he's on our committee and this is what
Yes.
we're trying to do.
Oh.
But the access issue, he said, is a problem.
It is, it's impossible.
Well,
So there's no access to it at all? I mean, there's no path, no road, no nothing?
Nothing.
Because you could put in a mooring and you could put in a boat and then perhaps require the person to walk down a path to get to it.
Or to swim to it. I
Or
mean,
to swim to it.
but if you go through this conservation easement land, it's, a lot of it is bog. Tony was the warden there. So what is it? Can you describe it?
Well, as I understand it, you're talking about the end of Patton Road.
No, I'm at the end of the peninsula.
But you can't get to the end of the peninsula.
No, that's what we're saying.
At all. I
You
mean,
can't.
that's hopeless. That's deep, that's a good location, but it's completely inaccessible. The
Right.
only way you could get to, the only access point would be at the end of Patton Road. I don't know who owns that marshy area, but
No, it
that would
is.
be the southern end, the southernmost end of Coleman Pond. But it would be.
Can I
tough.
describe the research that I did that might be sort of helpful to this?
Yes,
I looked at several towns that have ordinances, mooring ordinances in Maine. Harrison, for instance, has one. They have 500 moorings in town. They're all for shorefront owners and people with deeded right of way over a land and permission from the landowner. They have 15 to 20 of the 500 mooring sites for non-shorefront owners, and none are in front of private property, because the private property owner has to give written permission to walk over their lands. And so that's Harrison. Sebago, they did a draft ordinance, which was quite interesting, and but they didn't want to pay for a harbor master, and so it's been voted down, but it might be revisited. I mean, the problem is that it's anarchy apparently out there in Lake Sebago. There are lots of illegal moorings, and some of the moorings are even out 700 feet. In their draft, so they're going to revisit probably their draft ordinance. They had prohibited houseboats from mooring for more than 10 days. They had they were going to establish designated mooring anchorages where the selectmen could designate areas, and everything else was going to be open shoreline. But for lake access, over private property, it had to be documented with the permission of the landowner. And that's how they got around this, the old colonial ordinance, which gave everybody permission to walk over unimproved land to reach a lake for the purpose of fishing and fowling. But the fishing and fowling has kind of disappeared in the past 10 years. Well, the first time I researched it, fishing and fowling was right there. It's gone now, it doesn't exist. Naples, they have 809 registered moorings, of which 250 are non-shorefront owners. But they all have deeded right of way or permission from the landowners to cross the property to the shore. There are a ton of illegal and unregistered moorings, and they get summonses and they have to be gone within 30 days. In 2015, there was a lawsuit because there were so many moorings in front of individual properties. And so they had to reduce the lawsuit came down that they had to follow Title 38, which is a very interesting title about how many moorings you can have in front of your property if you're a shorefront owner. And so they had to only have one mooring and whatever was stipulated in Title 38. And the town owns shorefront property, but there are no moorings in front of it. And all that's tabled for now. And but the town does have docking areas. And then I heard from, where was it that I heard from? Casco. And the person who's currently the inland mooring captain said that they didn't know enough to call this guy who was there when they set up the ordinance. And so he's gone on to some other job, but he wrote back and said, I don't know for sure how many moorings are owned by backlot owners, but we do have 305 registered moorings in town, and the majority are owned by those who actually own waterfront land. But we have some by backlot owners that have a right of way to the water. The town does not have a common mooring area like a harbor where they assign moorings or lease moorings like a shorefront might. But we do allow moorings 100 to 200 feet out, if not possible or practical, to place within 100 feet. Swim floats are not allowed beyond 100 feet. And so I've written back and asked him a couple of more questions about things. And I asked actually whether they allowed moorings 100 to 200 feet out in front of private property on the shoreline. And so I have yet to hear back from him. But at any rate, it shows that there are a lot of fairly tight ordinances around that seem to have survived and seem to be ongoing. So hopefully the attorney for Lincolnville is not going to be, have a mooring anywhere 100 to 200 feet out, whether it's in front of people's property or not.
So, yes, thanks, Lisa. So anyway, this is really a lakes and ponds issue. I mean, it's become a lakes and ponds issue, as big as most anything else we're dealing with, I think.
Because it's going to get worse, because more and more people are going to buy boats and they're going to want out in the water, and it's going to get worse and worse.
Please, Rich, a question for you. Do these ordinances distinguish between floats and boats for moorings?
Some do. I mean, some of them prohibited float planes and swim floats in the DMZ. That's the designated mooring zone.
Mm-hmm. So that would be something else to consider.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of ways of prohibiting things. Now, whether the lawyer for Lincolnville is going to go along with that, I don't know, but we'll see.
Yeah, the moorings that are permitted have to do, because if you go with more common mooring areas, it's going to be permitting, and the inland harbor master, who's involved with our committee as well, is going to have to be involved in that process. So what's being talked about are boats. It would be permitting boats. He won't be bothered.
Frankly, I think we should try and prohibit swim floats for non-shorefront owners and also float planes.
Lise, in the ordinances that you looked at, it sounded as though there was registration required by property owners for their floats and boats, which is not something that's in place in Lincolnville right now. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes. We have, anything goes.
So administratively, it would mean if you were to follow those models, having all shorefront owners register their moorings for both floats and boats. And
yes, and it might end up that they would have fewer of them, the shorefront owners.
I'm not
because
sure.
they would have to abide by Title 38.
I'm not sure it's going to require any registration for shore owners. I think what I'd like to see is just having non-owners, non-shorefront owners apply for moorings that are in designated areas. They'll go through a permitting process, but I don't want to add that kind of work to the town to have to track registrations for
Well,
more.
Naples had that problem in 2015, that some lawsuit came along, and because there were so many moorings in front of shorefront owners' properties. And the lawsuit came down that the town had to enforce Title 38, which says 1 mooring per property owner.
Well, yeah, our ordinance is going to say the same, I believe.
Right. So, I mean, because that's state law. You can make it tighter, but you can't make it looser.
And I was just commenting on Lisa's research. It seems as though the towns that she looked at did require some kind of registration on the part of property owners.
Yeah.
Well, but understand, you know, the lakes that Lisa's talking about typically are huge lakes. I mean, you're hearing about numbers in the hundreds for designated area moorings and so on. It's hard. The problem we're having is our lakes are so small. Right
Yeah,
now.
but we have hundreds of, I mean, how many moorings would you say are on Norton Pond?
About 100.
Yeah, I would say at least.
No, but didn't you say, Lise, that one lake had, for designated moorings, had a high number? What was
Yes,
that?
they did. But if you add all the moorings on Pitcher and McGundacook and Coleman, you might end up with what, 400?
That's possible, but I don't know that that number matters for our having
Yeah.
to register everyone.
Right.
I'm
Well, I
talking
think that's a
about-
bridge we have to cross. Who wants to do it? But they could run into trouble, but hey.
So, you know,
One access, one thing that hasn't come up is that the number of moorings designated or wildcat has no reference to the acreage of the pond. And that might be something that we
Yeah.
would want to consider. Obviously, you don't want 100 moorings on Moody Pond or Levenseller, but McGonagall would tolerate a much greater number. So
You
I
don't
think-
want any.
Well, my point is that acreage is a relevant factor.
well, that's a question that we pose to the attorney. We need to find out what kind of parameters there are for the number of moorings that have to be designated in town to get an ordinance through. In other words, if we say, oh, we've got 2 moorings for non-residents in the whole town, you know, what does that mean? You know, is that an ordinance that actually can go through?
Well,
So-
some of the towns that I researched have no non-shorefront owner moorings. And they went through and they're still around. That's not to say that they're legal or that we should do that, but I'm just saying that that exists.
Well, our attorney already said we can't do that, so that's what we're up against. So anyway, I would just pose to this group that if you have any ideas or suggestions to help us get through this or figure out these designated areas. You know, I'm hearing that what you're saying about Coleman, that one area off coastal, the easement for coastal mountains is impossible to get to. And
It's impossible, but it's possible to have a mooring there if you chose a 9-foot spot,
one mooring,
one mooring.
so we're not sure
You
how.
know, I can show you the depths of that area, if that would be helpful.
But you
Okay,
can't
well,
get there.
we can
You
talk-
can't get there unless,
There's no way to get there.
unless you made an arrangement, as Lee said, that you can walk across somebody's property. That's the only way to do it.
And
Now,
then
there's-
you'd have to have a dinghy to access it.
Yes.
There is, yeah, one, at Pitcher Pond, there's one possibility I'm exploring now with Dave Kinney, because there is a common, what's called a common area of access for for some homes and camps and a small dock. And right across the lake from that, and Pitcher Pond isn't that wide, is where Coastal Mountains has property. So that might work at Pitcher, but Dave's not sure whether common area means non-owners. So that's a question that has to be answered too. Anyway, we're kind of stumped right now in terms of finding designated areas, but we're probably going to have till next, maybe we'll have till next spring to try to find some.
What in the comprehensive plan, the Lincolnville's comprehensive plan written 8 years ago, maybe, or some time ago, one of the things that pleased us on this committee was that each body of water would be considered independently.
Yes.
And I think that is something that should be discussed on the mooring committee too, that the solution for one pond is not a solution, may not be the best solution for another.
There's another proposition I'd like to put out there too, and I don't know whether or not as a committee we would want to speak to this issue, and that would be to take into account environmental sensitivity of both the mooring area itself and the way in which people would access the mooring area, looking at both of those issues. You know, I think that would be important. I think that's going to happen as part of the process, but it perhaps should be a stated principle.
Has to be. That's I think that's very, very true. So environmental needs or sensitivity, acreage, different solutions for different ponds.
You know, I think the Coastal Mountains did that in granting permission for the areas off their shore, off by the Bog Bridge. What they took a look at the issue of what would it mean for access to the moorings if people would be crossing their property rather than going out from the boat launch area itself. So that was the McFetters area, which is just to the left of where the boat launch is, and it's that piece of land that goes off to the left, and it is undeveloped. And they really wanted to limit access of people going through their property, going down through the shoreland area to the boats themselves. So that might be a principle that they would bring up in terms of the identified areas off of their.
Harry, how did they resolve that? Did they say that people had to access those moorings, if they are moorings, from Bog Bridge?
You know, I don't know if they put a formal restriction on it, but I think the thinking was that those moorings could be accessed from the Bog Bridge.
Well, that was my thought, and I sort of talked with Ian a little bit about it, but I don't feel comfortable talking about it publicly at all. But you say that there has been resolution and Coastal Mountains has agreed, because it hasn't come up before the board yet.
Well, that was my understanding. You might want to give Ryan Gates a call. He was the person who was dealing most directly with the issue. And he brought the issue to the stewardship committee that I sit on.
Oh, and so they said, fine, if the access was from Bog Bridge.
Well, that was a consideration. It was what kind of.
It was a consideration. Okay. Okay. That's what I think.
They came down on it.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I just want to say, given Rich's observation of more boats and more floats on Pitcher and Tony's more boats and more floats on Coleman, that what the two of you, Rich and Lisa, are dealing with is extremely important.
You better believe it. And maybe the best thing is to do nothing if this woman doesn't cooperate.
This woman being the lawyer.
Right. 'Cause
Yeah,
she's the one who said anything goes, any kind of mooring, 100 to 200 feet in front of property, whatever, wherever.
But Rich makes a good point too, that people are already exploiting it without any control with respect to environmental sensitivity,
That's right.
the enjoyment of the resource to property owners.
And it's going to get worse.
well, it is. I mean,
Yeah.
it is. So I really appreciate the work that you're doing and how difficult.
We need a lot of brains on this.
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
where the mooring got dropped in Pitcher Pond is in a really sensitive wetlands cove.
Ah,
You know, it's one of the nicest wetland areas on the lake, and it's a shame that, you know, there's nothing that could be done. So we're gonna try to do what we can, but
Right.
maybe you can say because Coleman is really an awful lot of wetlands
Yeah.
around the
Perimeter.
conservation easement land and other areas that it's wetland, and you can't just go put in more
Float.
wetland.
Just a note of lightening things up a little bit. Some of you may know Corlin Sen, and her current investigation of lime quarries, kilns, and railroads in Lincolnville. And she has discovered that in the 1830s and 40s, there was a wharf on the southwest corner of Coleman and a barge that trucked the limestone across to the northeast corner of Coleman Pond. So things could be worse.
Yeah, and they did that until they put the railroad in, right?
They did that until the railroad came in. So, and the dam was built. So it it comes around, goes around.
But I really
Yeah,
want to thank you both because this is a
Yeah, I second Whitney's.
a really potentially terrible problem for Lincolnville. And as you said, Rich, all the ponds in Lincolnville are really small, except for the bit in Lincolnville and McGuntacook.
you know, I think this is how we envision things working with Rich and Lise being on the committee and being able to bring issues back to the Lakes and Ponds Committee for reactions, perspective, thoughts. Thank you so much for the time you're putting into this. As Whitney was saying, this truly is a tough issue. And
yeah, some people have.
I think Lisa's right. You know, we worked with the town lawyer on the solar project, and that was a difficult process. You know, both some of the timing kinds of things that you talked about, taking a year to get back to you, and then not necessarily a lot of flexibility.
I'm afraid of
So,
that.
good luck with that meeting.
Afraid of that.
Well,
But then again,
Um,
we got to be tough.
the very small ponds, yeah, I'm not even considering moorings in those little places, you know, 11 cellar. And, you know, it doesn't make any sense to be thinking that way, I don't believe.
Well, aren't there some already in Levin Cellar?
I'm talking about designated areas.
Oh,
Well, we'll keep you up on it. We'll see what goes on. I'm
Well,
hoping we'll meet
something
with the
has
attorney this next month. I'm hoping.
Well, thanks for sticking with it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
well, the alternative is destruction.
Yes.
As Jeff Braun and I were doing the dock survey, he remarked about some ponds that he was, lakes, bodies of water that he was familiar with in Georgia, I think he said, it might have been South Carolina or North Carolina, where there was bass fishing And it is just boat dock, boat dock, boat dock, boat dock, and from the perspective, or by comparison to what we have, it was awful. And I think that could be our future if we're not careful, if we're not doing what the mooring committee is doing. It's
Look
what
what's
you're doing.
happened already. Look at the jump we've seen this 1 year with the numbers of docks and floats.
Yeah,
And the more people hear that a mooring ordinance may be in the offing, the more they're going to put moorings in.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when you have the chance. So yeah, we're not broadcasting anything.
So I think we want to keep quiet about this and not talk about it.
right.
Well,
I agree.
I think it's going to be important to hear from the lawyer and see what flexibility we have in designing something.
Yeah.
That would
Right.
work for both the environment and for the property owners.
And the
Gary, your very considered opinions might be a very welcome addition on this extremely critical committee.
One more thing.
And I know you don't want to hear that, but this is actually, as everybody has stressed, very important.
I have a lot of faith in both you and Rich. And what
Okay,
you
well,
bring
we're
to the
going to keep
committee.
coming back to you. And I'm going to send you the results. Did I send you the results of my research? No,
Yeah.
but I'm going to send it to you. But I'm asking everybody not to pass it along, to keep it confidential, because I just think if this gets out that it's being worked on, there are going to be more moorings.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's all keep it very quiet.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on to our other agenda item. And but before I do, I want to welcome Susan. Glad you could join us. And I also wanted to see whether or not you had any report on Maguntacook.
I said in the chat, my internet connection is very unstable, so I don't know if you're hearing me. I'm having a hard time hearing all of you. We have not been out for several weeks with the change of seasons. As we all know, the water level is extremely low this year, but I really have nothing else to report.
Okay, thank you, Susan.
We can hear you well.
Okay, good.
Okay, moving on to Phragmites. First of all, I wanted to thank all of the committee members who have been able to participate in the process. I think we've had 6 sessions, 6 or actually 7 sessions altogether. And I've been really pleased with the results. I think we've removed almost all of the stalks. None of the seed heads developed and went to seed, so there's no seed crop this year. And we've been back about 5 times cutting new shoots that have come up, which are denying the photosynthetic resources down to the roots, which should weaken the plants when they come back up again next year. So we'll have to see how that works out. And I know that a number of you wanted to participate, but weren't able to participate because of the days of the week that we ended up having to schedule the sessions. But I learned a lot. It was fun working with you. It was actually good to see some other people during this COVID period. And I think we made good progress. And I want to just sort of open up the floor for people to comment on how things went and what thoughts they might have for the future, whether this is something that we want to continue into next year and to provide an element in our budget. And I'll probably have to put the budget proposal together sometime in the next month or two that would require applying for a $250 state permit that would cover the next 2 years. And maybe there'd be some other elements we'd want to include in a budget request too, related to tools or other kinds of things. But I'll open it up to all of you.
Yeah,
Yeah, Garrett, go ahead.
I would just like to say we're at, as you mentioned, we're at a different stage now where the last couple of times we've just been either cutting down very close to the roots, those individual sprouts that are coming up. I had limited time last time. I took one of those weed whackers and I cleared a whole area, like a third of the section. I went back today to check, nothing else is coming up. What I do notice is when we decided to mulch with what we had cut, that mulch seems to be fairly effective. Nothing, very, very little is coming up through the mulched areas. We still have a lot of stuff, cut reeds on the tarps that is probably way beyond sprouting at this point. We could mulch more. So Lisa and I have been talking about this, and Lisa, do you want to take it on?
Okay, well, I was wondering kind of if we were going to have another session on Thursday, because maybe at that point, if we do, we could put the stuff that's on the tarps on top of the cleared area. But wondering if it should be considered that we put road fabric, the same kind of stuff that you put on knotweed to kill it, and it lasts for, you know, a fair substantial period of time on this area, and then cover it with, you know, rocks or something to keep it down and really kill it. And maybe even before that, if we could talk to the road commission, the road crews, and see if they wouldn't crush it all down and then put the tarp and then put the road fabric on top of it. So that's just brought up for consideration, rather than us going every week and, you know, nicking off these tiny little stalks.
Mm-hmm.
I would just continue that with saying, if we had a road crew that came in and could pack it down, I know that the terrain is irregular. That's going to be a challenge, but if they could pack it down, then with my little weed whacker, I could just go in and lop those things off so easily. Except there's still some brush. We need to remove some of that brush where we can't whack. And it's, you know, if we could, it's starting to come up in some taller areas there. So if we clear all the brush out, then it would be really accessible. It wouldn't be that hard to deal with.
Yeah, I think we probably need to think about the permitting restrictions. The permit that we have for this year relates to just manual removal only, and you know, and no machine removal. And if we were to do it in future years, we'd probably have to put together a proposal of exactly what we're going to do and what kind of impact it might have on the wetland. One of the reasons that tarps are often not used for this is that it suppresses all growth and vegetation. And part of the thinking behind restoration is if you can sort of beat the Phragmites down, but allow other things to come up, they'll develop their own root systems and they'll start shading the areas where the Phragmites is, and you'll actually have wetland plants that are developing in the area. But if you have a tarp that's down and it's down for several years and everything dies, then when you take it out, you have a very disturbed area that's sort of a fertile bed for other invasives to come up, things like knotweed, maybe Phragmites again. So I think we probably want to consult with some experts before we were to put down tarps, just so we don't do more harm than good with the project. The other thing is we also may want to talk to some of the people at, I think it's Maine DEP, you know, where the protocol, well, I guess the Connecticut protocol was suggesting just going in once at the end of July, cutting it down then, and not bothering before nor after the way that. And I don't know how much science was behind that and how much assessment was behind that. But if you go to the main site, what they recommend is that you start in May and then about once a month through the end of August, take everything down and stop at that point. So that in the main growing season from May to July, you're denying a lot of the photosynthesis that would take place that would send energy eventually down to the roots. And then once you get to August, it's pretty much senescence time anyway. So we should probably have some more discussions about how we want to approach this for next year. Because I think that all these options are viable, whether it's tarps, cutting once a year, cutting once a month, starting in May through through August or September. I think we've demonstrated that we are able to do this kind of work. Doing it for a couple hours, you can get a fair amount done. It was certainly much harder the first couple of times when we were dealing with the whole mass. But if it doesn't come up as strongly, and if maybe we hit it early next spring, it might not be that difficult a job. And if we don't have the COVID restrictions, we can maybe get other volunteer organizations and volunteers to join us in the effort. But we should probably have this on our agenda again and do some more research.
The one question I would have about throwing the stalks on top of the mat, the plants that have been cut, is how hard it might be to get to the shoots when they start coming up again. If they're not, it might provide some protection for the plants actually and make it tougher. I'm not sure, but it should be thought about.
I think because that has happened before. There were certain areas where people had cleared, in years past and then just left the stuff there. And those areas were particularly difficult. That's why we thought, something comes in there and crushes it all down so it's all level.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I like the idea of taking what we cut and putting it along the embankment of the parking lot. Is something that serves as a barrier or spread of the Phragmites, but try to get as much of the stuff that has been cut and is on the wetland itself up to that more upland area.
Yeah. Gary, I have a question. Have you heard criticism from anyone in town about what it is that we've done and how it looks and how it affects that area behind the war memorials?
The only thing that I've heard is that there was concern that there were some young mountain bike riders who were now able to access that slope behind the memorial, and it made a pretty scary path that came straight down the fall line. And Dave Kinney got a report to the town office on that, and evidently the bike rider or bike riders were spoken to and it wasn't continuing. But David asked me to take a look at it to assess whether or not there might be erosion that could occur there. And I went out and took a look, and that slope, as Tony was saying, is really studded with some pretty large boulders and rocks. So it's not that prone to erosion, but I think water could come down and create some problems that way. And what I suggested to David that we might want to do, and that I wanted to talk with you about, is maybe take some of the cut Phragmites stems that are no longer vegetatively active and put them across that pathway where the bike had come down. And I know that's a little different than the question you were asking. I think you were asking the sort of the aesthetic question of whether or not people are unhappy that the Phragmites is no longer there. I haven't heard anything along those lines, but I know you've got a good ear, Pat.
Yes.
Well, I just ended up in all the wrong places. So I was at the bandstand for a committee meeting, a different town committee meeting. And one of the members of the committee, as we were walking back to our cars, was pointing out to people this incredible eyesore and this horrible thing that had been done. And these people just took it upon themselves, just cut all this stuff down, and it wasn't any threat to the pond. And now look, and the memorial is going to erode and fall off the thing. And people shouldn't be able to just willy-nilly go around whacking stuff off and just leaving it there. And how does it look? And what's going to happen? And oh my God, didn't I think that was terrible? I don't know. It wasn't there. I didn't do it. So it was, the person was pretty worked up about it. And so I didn't know if they ended up talking to David or what, but they were making sure that other people knew that it was a bad thing that we had done willy-nilly for no good reason, because we have nothing better to do than go out with Susan and a weed whacker.
Yeah, there's probably some lessons there for us in terms of publicizing what we're doing and what the now is for it. And had it happened in any other year than this one, that probably would have happened because we would have done the outreach to all of the volunteer organizations, including the committee for the honor roll.
Well, and given any other time, I probably would have defended our committee and the work, but this person was so agitated about it and so angry, and it was such a bad thing, and I just wanted to leave. And but it was a good example of how people can see the actions of somebody else and somebody else's work and not understand the intentions or the purpose or the why. It was just ugly, and the bank was going to collapse, and the memorials were going to fall over, and someone was dishonoring the dead veterans by whacking it, whatever those things were. So only in 2020 could remediating Phragmites mean that we're dishonoring our dead veterans. So that's it.
Do you think it would be worth reaching out to that person, or is that?
I could tell you who it is, and you could reach out to them. I'm quite reached to and with them by that person.
Perhaps since this is likely to be a multi-year, potentially 10-year effort, perhaps
we need a sign.
A sign, exactly.
A sign.
A sign that explains what was there, what is there. It's an informative sign. A little sign that's a foot by 2 feet, 3 feet. Big enough to.
That's a good idea.
If you can read, willing to read it, you'd find an answer.
And we probably should have had one a couple of months ago.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe it could be somehow combined with the concept of the nature trail being there, and we could call it a wetland restoration area with.
That sounds really good. Yeah.
Since on that, what did you call it? Uplands, which is more or less where I have been doing my Phragmites whacking. I noticed that there is a small stand of black locust, that, as I was talking to Dave Kinney about. Black locust is an invasive weed. I think it's not a tree, it's a weed. It's a legume, but it grows very fast and very vigorously. Maybe that could be some of the black locust vigor could be harnessed to fight the Phragmites.
Mm-hmm.
How?
Yes.
How?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, but I know that I've cut black locust and had pieces 2 feet long start sprouting sprouts, epicormic sprouts right out of the cut log. It's pretty vigorous, and it maybe it would help hold the bank together. It's already there. Everyone is used to it. It could be part of the messaging that it's part of the restoration is
of the black locust forest.
Another weed.
Kill a Phragmite for a locust.
Yeah. Well, black locust is a lot
held up Dean and Euclid's for years. The bank held
Yeah.
up Dean and Euclid's forever.
I know, but now we're destroying it.
Right.
Well, may I just say, I think this is an important question. Aren't we accountable to the town in some way? And isn't there some way to communicate to people what's going on? I mean, could we do a little seems like the Lincolnville Bulletin Board is the big mouthpiece of the whole town, but is there some way to do a little write-up very simply and explain that, you know, how carefully this was undertaken and what we did and what the goals?
Yes. Yeah. Do we have before and after pictures or?
Yeah, maybe a little story on the project. Susan, I know that you took some photos early on. Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. You know, it's something that we can include in the town report. Not that many people read the town report, but it's something that we could highlight as an important effort to.
Maybe the Penn Bay Pilot or the Free
Just
Press
think-
might like to do
the
a
free
story.
press. The free press, yeah.
If we
Well,
had some
or-
pictures before.
Well, and I think the idea of, for, you know, like Diane in a column, something on the bulletin board and a sign that says this is a work in progress, that this is a multi-year effort by this committee to accomplish this particular thing. Lighten up, people. They act like, this person acted like it was bamboo that the baby pandas were gonna eat, and we killed it. So
So I think
if we're
that
gonna
it
do
might be-
all the, if the committee's going to take this on and do this work on behalf of the town, we really should educate people about what it is that we have done and why, and that it was for their own good.
So it was an oversight. Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
That's what I wanted to say as I fled.
No, really. You know, I spoke to.
I'm a coward.
I spoke to Diane O'Brien about what we were doing and told her that it might be something that she'd want to include in her column sometime. You know, and that might be a good way to introduce the public to it, especially if we
Yep.
can have some photos. Maybe
Yeah.
Susan, some of your photos that show us working out there,
Yeah.
and we could try to get the message across in that way. But I think that we probably need to think more about the whole restoration piece of this. So it's not just about destroying Phragmites, but what's our vision for the area, and be able
Yeah.
to articulate that. And getting to Tony's point, you know, what would we want to have there in place of the Phragmites? You know, I think that down where it is wetter, getting in some swamp red maples. Red maples are really pretty beautiful trees, and I think that they would really shade out the Phragmites if we could get them established in there. So maybe we ought to make this a main topic of discussion at our next meeting. People can think about this some, think about the public relations aspect of this. Maybe someone be willing to write up something about it that we could put on the bulletin board, or try to get to Diane or the newspapers to make it a good story. So I'm glad you brought that up, Pat. Thanks.
I would say the banner should say "Project to Protect Norton Pond." I would say it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I agree, planning,
But was that the purpose?
and maybe the town has some money to put into planting some small red maples or something. That's a good idea.
Mm-hmm. You know, and Lisa, I think it was the purpose, because it was sort of undertaken by the Lakes and Ponds Committee, and we're really concerned that Phragmites would get established in that wetland end of Norton Pond and just really change the ecology of it, and then end up spreading along the shorelines, causing problems for property owners, and not be able to get boats through up to where Cheryl lives. You know, it could just really choke it off completely. So I think that that's a part of the message too.
Well, you all know that you had to convince me that they were a problem. I defended them to the best of my ability.
Yes, you did.
I'd be willing to write up a little something with the other writers in this group. Pat and Whitney, you did some photographs. You documented the beginning of that project.
I didn't take any photographs. I
No.
just, every 15 minutes when you had a break, and then the documenting I did, which Gary has, was different types of tools that worked
Oh, yeah.
and which didn't. And that was it. You've got that, Gary, don't you? I don't.
I do, and I can share that with you, Susan. You know, I think the fact that we did go through permitting too, or
Yes.
we went through conversation
Yes.
with DEP, they sanctioned this, you know, this project would be good too, to say that it wasn't just helter skelter.
Willy-nilly's the word.
Yeah. And we also did, I also did brief the select board on it.
Select board,
Yeah.
So that all has to be, we've been through the powers that be, the state and the town.
Right. Right.
And
Okay.
according,
And the town could have paid a whole lot of money for this, and instead, y'all did it. I whacketh not one, Fragmighty. Not yet. It's a 3-year process, right?
Your time will come, yes.
Yes.
well, Tony tells
So are
me,
we going out there Thursday?
So that's a question. It sounds like we could probably go out on Thursday, take the tarps up, mound stuff along that embankment, and then maybe do some things to try to work on that path that goes down behind the Veterans Memorial. Maybe carry some Phragmites branches up, or take some of the ones that were cut up there and put them over where there's bare earth coming down on that trail. So I could see maybe an hour's worth of work on Thursday morning for those who can attend.
Move that brush out.
Mm-hmm.
Some big
Yeah,
branch-
so, right, so kind of a flattening. Maybe if we even have some rakes to pull some of that stuff out, that would be good.
Pitchforks. I want pitchforks.
his limb of black.
What
lung.
time, Gary?
8 o'clock is when we've been doing it. I know it's almost dark at 8 in the morning now, but that
Well,
one doesn't interfere with the rest of the day. And I think that would be our last session for the year out there. Okay, one more item, and that's putting in place our officers for this year. And I guess the positions that we need to fill would be the chair, the co-chair, and the secretary. Maybe we should have a communications director too. That might be a good plan, if not formally, more informally. And I wanted to say I'd be happy to have someone else step to the chair position.
No,
No.
no.
So no, so if anyone would like to nominate themselves or nominate someone else, I'd be quite happy to be a regular working member of this committee.
Does that mean you're going to run for selectman?
I am not going to run for selection.
May we nominate you, Gary?
I'll second it.
Selectman or this?
No, we want him as our chairman.
Yeah, not for the selectmen, but for this. Would you be the chair if we nominated you?
Well, why don't we nominate him and ratify him and get it all done right now?
I
Yes,
nominate Gary.
I second it.
All in favor?
Okay.
Well,
Aye,
Aye.
Aye,
aye.
You've had good leadership, Gary.
yes.
it has
Anybody
cost
opposed? No.
Now's no time to change horses.
Oh,
Not,
You
not
know.
mid swamp, right? Or
Yeah, not
That's
mid
my-
swamp, not mid Phragmites. We just can't, too much change, Gary. We can't change this.
you know, and it has gotten a little easier. I've followed Whitney's advice, and when I write up the reports for the annual report, I can use last year's and you know, just update it a bit. And I've got a format for doing the budget, so it's getting easier for what it's worth.
Well, thank you for serving.
yes,
Really, it's wonderful.
it is.
Thank
Well,
you so much.
We've got a good
Next.
committee. I really, you know, I wouldn't continue for another year if I didn't enjoy all of you as much as I do. It's been a great group to be a part of. I've really enjoyed it. So we need a co-chair. as
Well,
well.
I'll do the
Why?
co-chair, which I've done before, unless someone else wants it. I don't have to do anything, Gary, because you're so good.
We work with
Let's
the-
have Whitney.
Yes.
All in favor of Whitney?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes. Oh,
Okay, and now our reluctant secretary.
Yes, I nominate Tony.
Yay, all in favor.
But before we go to that, I really want to see if there is anyone else who would like to take on that job. Tony's talked to me in the past, and he's done this for a long time. He does a terrific job. It's great that he's got Whitney at his side to help him put that agenda together too. But if there's someone else who has an interest, I know that Tony would probably be grateful, but I'll let Tony speak for himself.
Well, your words are eloquent. I'd be willing to, happy to let this, to give someone else the opportunity, or have it be on a rotating basis, or any other.
But you're so good at it.
I'm hearing a lot of silence.
You're great
Good at it.
Tony.
Yeah, well, you do a terrific job.
Yeah, any
All
other
feel
comments?
greatly appreciated.
What was that, Susan?
I said, I hope all of you feel greatly appreciated. This committee is such a pleasure to work on. I've had the experience of coming before the appeals board, and I can't tell you what a contrast it is. This is real joy.
Okay. Well,
You accept
I
it.
guess we have our roster of people,
yeah.
of volunteers.
But I guess I would urge everybody to think about whether or not they might want to take on a different role next time around. Just to share the load and the leadership. I mean, everybody on this committee has talents that they could bring to bear in a leadership way, for what it's worth.
Thank you.
Anything else that people would like to bring up today?
Right.
And who might be able to make it on Thursday morning? I don't
I'll
think-
come.
Okay, great,
I think I can.
terrific, great.
I've had some work. Maybe, but I've got work on Thursday.
You know, and if you've got other work, Rich, I'm sure we'll be able to handle it. I don't see a whole lot that we need to do, so.
I'll try. I haven't lifted a Phragmite yet. And if this is the last workday, I will try to be there.
And just to cheer us on would be fine too.
Well, yeah, and so that the next time I encounter that person, I can say, yeah, I did it.
There you go. And you're
Okay.
probably,
You could also park up in front of the War Memorial and work your way down.
That's
Yes.
right. Bring your mountain bike. It's
Yes.
right.
a great course. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Jerry.
See you now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Night all.
Good night.
Night.
Now, what do we do, Tony? How do we go off?
Leave. Down here. Leave meeting.